Hello, Thomas Abraham James, President and CEO of Pulsar Helium Inc, listed on the TSXV. And we are, as the name suggests, a primary helium exploration and development company with assets in Minnesota and Greenland.
Thomas, good to see you again. When I last spoke to you, you were just about to do the listing. You were trying to raise some money. How was that process? And surely it's really easy to raise money in these markets, which is just throwing money at the junior sector, or perhaps not.
Wonderful to see you as always, Merlin. And look, the process, when we listed, we achieved that in mid-August, August 15th. And so at the time, we were the only IPO on the TSXV for that point in time in 2023. So it really does highlight, I guess, how difficult the capital markets have been. But I like to think that we've done something right. We went out to raise 3 million. We got 3.1, so Canadian. So that was successful. And now we've been listed for a couple of months. And really for us, it's getting on with the work program. We just put out a release yesterday. So with any luck, albeit with these capital markets, we're going to go out and do as we've said, implement the plan, and I think that should be sufficient to see the company move forward.
You say you went to raise 3. I thought you actually were trying to raise between 3 and 6, and so in a sense you just got over the line, which is, I memean, it's better than not getting over the line. But does that leave you with enough funds to kind of go as far as you want to go?
Yeah, look, it's we went out for a minimum of 3, maximum of 6, and really the difference between the two is what can we achieve with this upcoming appraisal drilling program at our project in Minnesota. So really the difference between the two being, okay, we go out, we drill the appraisal well, we then get all the testing and so on, confirm the characteristics of the reservoir. However, the largest sum of money, which what that could have achieved is to have it so that not only is it an appraisal well, but then also it could be used for production as well. So really that's what the difference in the cash was. Of course, it would have been great to have taken in more, but given the capital markets that we're experiencing and have now for a little while, I'm really proud of the team to be able to be that only IPO on the TSXV. So I think we must be doing something right. So whilst it's not the perfect outcome, it's still sufficient for our objectives.
And I saw in late September you've signed a drill contract. You've got a target spud date of early December, the 10th of December or thereabouts. It's a contract for one well, and are you calling them wells or drill holes?
Wells.
Anyway. So there's one well with the option for a second, but obviously that second one would be contingent on a top-up raise. So it would be the am I right in thinking that you get the first one, and if it's successful, then you'd raise some more money, which would enable you to do the appraisal and the second well?
That's correct, yes.
And is the appraisal a second well, or is that a kind of a workover on the existing well?
It's a second one. So it's going to be drilled within 20 meters. So with that one, it would be right next door. The original discovery drill hole is not one that we can re-enter again. We also have gone out and we've acquired some additional data as well. So we have the gravity data, the gravity gradiometry. We've just concluded the seismic survey as well. So whilst we have that data, I don't anticipate that it will change the collar position for that well very much, but it may well help to fine-tune it. But also post-drilling of the appraisal well, it would certainly then help to, that geophysical data will help to constrain the area of interest to the reservoir.
Sorry, I'm just going to, just for my own clarity.
Yeah.
When you talk about the appraisal well, is this the well that you're about to be drilling?
Yes, that's right.
You've got a historic well, and you're putting in a kind of a new well, but we're calling that the appraisal well.
That's right. Yes.
And then, if that is successful, then what happens?
What we go off is we use a group called Sprawl that they'll go off and then do an update to our resource based on that new data. And then should all that look as we certainly hope and believe it will, then the next step would then be to go and do economic studies to find out, okay, what could this resource, what type of production scenario could this resource really entertain.
And again, for clarity, by calling it a well and not calling it a drill hole, there comes with that association with an oil and gas well, or a gas well in this case, that there's a whole set of infrastructure associated with that well, which is completely different to classical kind of mining or kind of geology drill hole, or kind of the hard rock drill hole. And that infrastructure is about capturing and measuring and understanding and being able to re-enter. And can you just kind of tell me a bit about what that what the well entails?
Yeah, sure. So for a production scenario, you have the casing left down there. You would then install its surface. You would have like a Christmas tree, a wellhead there with a series of valves on it. In terms of the testing that we'd be looking at, is that you'd be looking at pressure testing, you'd be looking at flow rate testing, you'd then be looking at getting gas samples, which will collect in real time as well, saying, okay, what is the concentration of gas coming through? Leave it open for a while to see what is there any depreciation there in the flow rate. So that's the style of testing that we'll be looking at conducting. With that coupled then with the geophysics, which would then hopefully be mapping out the area of interest, so the target depths, and then seeing what features we see in the geophysics there, what is the reservoir structure. All that combined would then go into the resource analysis.
Okay, so one of the key objectives is to recalibrate and redefine your resource. With the gas that comes off, do you do the equivalent of flaring it, or do you capture it?
No, we'd be capturing it. So what we'd have is we'd have a mud tank system there, so it'd be a closed system. So it's not going to look that spectacular. It's not going to be like one of these old sort of Western geysers with all the instead of the black gold coming out. Instead of that, the gas won't be visible. So what happens is you'll have a fluid system there which will equilibrate the pressure of the gas coming out, so that we won't have that venting occurring. So it will be a closed system. So it's not going to look spectacular, but we'll get the data.
And will you get any gas that you can sell, or is that just kind of much later in the process?
That'll be a bit later in the process. So we'd need to go through an initial processing stage. So what we're looking at is the possibility. So based on all this being successful, is that then the gas is not. It's a primary helium system that we're looking at. So we're not looking at capturing hydrocarbons, other gases. So the actual processing route is relatively straightforward for producing gaseous helium. So what we look at would be the potential of initial gaseous helium sales, for which in Minnesota there's a lot of end users for that. And then in the meantime, should the resource justify it, then look at the larger plant build, which would be for the high value liquid helium, which would take a longer time to fabricate and implement.
What's the difference in price between gaseous helium or gaseous helium and liquefied helium?
For the gaseous, you're looking at about, so there was an offtake agreement not so long ago where it was $625 per 1,000 cubic feet. For liquid helium, latest contracts are going for in excess of $1,000, with the spot market being even higher than that again. So to put that in context, natural gas futures contracts at the moment are roughly about $4 for 1,000 cubic feet.
So 250 times, more or less. How does one kind of follow the helium market? Because it's not a kind of trade on a terminal market. It's very opaque pricing. Will you be working your pricing out on a kind of a customer by customer basis, or is there some kind of broader market that you can correlate yourselves to?
Well, look, I'll give a shout out to a friend of mine, to a group that we use, ACAP Energy, with a niche there. So their helium data, I think, is the most credible. They look at the import and export volumes that are coming in and out of countries. So that's a very reliable source of information. We look at that. Now also with there being more listed helium companies out there who need to disclose their contracts. That's another good source of information that previously never really existed. There is still no spot market out there, but look, it is becoming somewhat more transparent. And the other big one is actually that yesterday in Dallas, there was a conference, a helium conference, and that's all to do with the sale of the U.S. federal helium system. So that's being privatized, and that bids are being accepted for that on the 15th of November. So this is a huge thing for pricing because the U.S. federal government has had the largest helium repository in the world, and that really was the flywheel in the system that gave stability to world helium. But now that is being reduced quite dramatically in size. There's about 4 billion cubic feet of helium left. The world uses about 6 billion cubic feet per annum. And now that going into private hands, we may well see that will also have an additional shock on the helium price. And there's no obvious large sources of helium coming online. So it looks like that pricing, as we've seen historically, each quarter it goes up. And most likely it's set to continue.
Are they selling? Are they going to, of that 4 billion... 4 BCF, are they looking to sell it down half of it, what's the process?
There's two different lots. One is, I believe, they're selling off. The first lot is selling off a BCF of helium. Then the balance would go into the second lot, which also comes with the infrastructure. So that is the helium plant, the pipeline, the producing wells. So is history for this? What it is, it's a geological sort of cavern in the ground, a reservoir, let's call it. And so what the US government did was, when elsewhere they produced natural gas, methane, with that there was a small component of helium. So they would take out the helium and then re-inject it into this reservoir. And so you can imagine with that, you've got the well gathering system there and then a centralized production facility. So it's all that infrastructure is up for sale, and it's quite a big thing for the helium industry. As I say, that was the flywheel, and now in private hands, there are concerns about where will that helium be allocated.
You talk about the prices rising every quarter. Just for background information, what was the price a year ago, or at the start of the year?
The price a year ago, so there was an offtake announcement that was released late last year, and that was $450. And then the recent one was $600.
For liquid or for gaseous?
It's for gaseous, yes. So from $450 last year to $625 this year.
Okay, good reference. Coming back to the well, it's going to be 671 meters deep, which the last time you spoke, you told me about there's a volcanic or a kind of an igneous cap of material over the top. And how thick is that? And is the 671st meter is the first meter that pops out underneath, or does it go into the formation below some way?
Yeah, so the gas is intercepted in the Discovery well at 541 meters depth. So that's where we anticipate to hit it. Then beyond that, it hasn't been drilled. So the geophysics gives us some idea of what to anticipate, but really we won't know until we drill. So this is the point. So drilling beyond where the gas was previously intercepted to see what is further below. Do we then go into, do we continue in that igneous rock? Do we then go into the sedimentary units that we know are right next door, and then to get the better characteristics of the reservoir? So to be answered, I guess, next when we talk in the new year, perhaps, or at Christmas time. Yeah.
And the seismics, will the detail that you've got on the seismic, will that be able to give you an indication of when you're into the sediments? The oil boys can pick up a lot from the seismic, so hopefully you'll be able to do the same.
Yeah, well, we've got a good feel about it. So we're using this ambient noise tomography, so passive seismic. So we have an array of nodes out in the field. Before we started the survey, we along with the group that provides the survey equipment, we did a desktop study. So knowing what the geology is and the seismic activity that's nearby, which is quite neat because right near to us we've got the iron ore mine, so lots of blasting there. And so the feel was, based on that analysis, is that the quality of data down to 750 meters depth will be good. So I think that the answer is yes. I think that on the back of that seismic survey, we should be able to then start to say what is beneath the gas show.
Good. And no, we haven't actually spoken about the news release which you just put out, which was land acquisition, kind of new areas, expanding your the lease area. Tell me a little bit about that, please.
Yeah, sure. Look, in this part of the USA, in Minnesota, the licensing system there is this checkerboard style, so like a chessboard. So lots of small blocks that are there. And so when we went and we listed the company, we had the mineral rights for the area where the discovery was and surrounds. Then we've gone out to get additional private mineral rights that is within that, say, 10-kilometer radius around that. So with this additional mineral rights I've just got, that certainly gets most of the private mineral rights. But then the balance is held by the government. Now in Minnesota, they don't have legislation yet for gaseous substances or liquid substances. So there's no history of oil and gas in Minnesota. So what we've done is, in good faith with the government, is that we've lent our experience with it and recommendations for legislation, but also then submitted applications as well. So I'm very pleased that we were able to get this additional land because it is high priority for us. And then the balance will come in due course when the government has their legislation in place.
So just for clarity, you've got the private land, but you've got an ongoing negotiation with the government for the state-held land.
That's right. So what makes it important having this additional bit of private land is that that is the one that is currently available to get. So of course, from our point of view, securing it was very important. We regard it as very high priority so that no competitors could come in. And then with the state will be when the state is ready. But we've already submitted an application for that. So I guess in terms of concerns about competitors coming into our area of interest is no longer a concern.
And what's your kind of your area of interest? What's your kind of your geographical circumference you've got?
Well, there's an area there that's sort of roughly, we think it's about 20 square kilometers. That sort of size that we think is looking very enticing. That is what we see in the geology. It's what we see. It's funny, like the history of Minnesota, nobody's gone out looking for helium until we came along. But there is a history of a number of drill holes being conducted for mineral exploration, and they intercepted gas. And the vast majority of those were non-combustible, but never analyzed for helium. So only two wells in history in Minnesota were analyzed for helium. One is the 10.5% that we have, and then the other one is about 160 kilometers away, and that came out with 2% helium. So we think that we're looking at something that's very widespread here, but we are focusing in on that immediate area around the well that has flowed that 10.5%.
The mineral rights are separate from the surface rights, so surface rights are crucial as well.
Yeah, that's right. So with surface rights for putting in infrastructure and so on, it's preferential to own the surface rights. So that's something that we've already started to go down the path with. So with where the discovery well is located, where the appraisal well will be, we've spoken to the surface ownership, the surface rights holder, and we've agreed on terms to acquire that. So that's I hope will give our audience sort of a level of comfort that we are quite confident about how this next program will go, to already go and secure those surface rights in preparation for then, based on success with the appraisal well, to really move as rapidly as possible to realize that potential production scenario.
Are those terms public yet?
The terms of the acquisition, no, they're not, but they've been agreed upon it, and now we're waiting for to be closed, and they will be disclosed.
And so that comes into does that come into the bracket of monies to be spent if you've got if you raise some more on the back of a successful well?
It's something that we're looking to do prior to the well, so it's something that will be happening in the near term. So it's already factored into the current budget.
Okay. Good, Thomas. Thank you very much for the update. Good luck with the spud, and may your wells blow gaseous.
Yeah, look, it's a very exciting time. I can't believe we're in October already, so it's really not very far away. We've got the Helium Summit coming up in Houston at the end of the month, so the gathering of the industry that occurs every 2 years, and then just after that we'll be drilling, what I think is probably one of the most exciting helium prospects in the USA. So it's going to be a busy lead up to Christmas.